My understanding, which kind of, again, corresponds with the Vedic tradition, is that there are different levels of thought, from subtle to gross, you could say. And they even have names for that in Sanskrit, the gross spoken word, the gross thought word, the subtle impulse of thought, even before it gets any kind of verbal quality to it, and then something that's beyond all those, just sort of the silent absolute field. And you could use an analogy to understand this, which is like, let's say in a pond or an ocean, bubbles come up from the bottom, and they bubble up and they get larger as they come up, and they finally burst on the surface of the water. And the average person doesn't see the bubble until it bursts on the surface, but that's actually some time since it left the bottom of the ocean. So a diver, goes down and he can see the bubbles at earlier stages of their emergence to the surface, and he can even go to the very bottom and watch as the bubble comes out right from the mud or whatever from the bottom of the ocean. So with thoughts, impulses come from a deep level of the mind of which we're generally unaware. And they bubble up until eventually they burst on the surface as a conscious thought. But when you do certain types of spiritual practice, you can kind of like trace the thought back to its source. You can kind of ride the bubbles down, so to speak, and then arrive at the source from which they arose. And you can kind of end up residing in a place that's prior to the emergence of thought. And if that becomes kind of established, then um, you catch thoughts spontaneously when they first emerge, and you therefore can have not sort of a manipulative kind of control, but a discriminative kind of control, where you can just more easily choose to ignore a thought, like which otherwise might come out as a burst of anger in the average person. You can just sort of say, nope, I'm not going to express that. I'm just going to check it. And it dissipates like just a ball of sawdust disintegrating in your hand. And you can reside at a level at which I talk to people who describe this beautifully, who you can reside at a level at which thoughts have not even taken on a verbal quality. They're just kind of like subtle impulses that don't have English or Spanish or German words associated with them yet. And you can reside on that. It's a deep intuitive level of experiencing. And one can live that from there and act from there. And it results in a whole different quality. And so the latency is very short, because there's not this delay between the emergence of the thought and the point at which you finally become aware of it. It's you're aware even before the thought emerges, and you're aware as it emerges, and so there's little or no latency.